Hello and welcome to Jihad and the World. This episode traces the early Muslim migration to Britain. It is entitled Islam Comes to Britain. Already London is the biggest centre for Islamic finance outside the Islamic world. But I want London to be one of the great capitals of Islamic finance anywhere in the world. John Cameron, 2013. A cesspit for Islamists. Wole Soyinka, a Nobel Laureate for Literature, description of London, 2010. Origins. Islam's presence in Britain began in the 19th century through colonial ties to India. The East India Company established trade relations with Muslims, especially in India, and employed many South Asian workers. The first notable play about Islam was the 1802 production The Bedouins, or Arabs of the Desert, a comedy in which an Englishman navigates Arabia. In 1857, a boarding house advertising itself as a home for Asiatics, Sikh Africans and South Sea Islanders, opened in London's Limehouse district. Arab design and fashion influenced Britain. Brighton's Royal Pavilion, built in 1815, the Arab Hall at Leighton House in London, and the Arab Room at Cardiff Castle, all from the mid-19th century, introduced a new aesthetic to the country. The opening of the Suez Canal in 1869 brought more Muslim workers to Britain. The first notable mosque was established in Liverpool in the early 1890s. Henry William Quilliam became Sheikh Abdullah Quilliam after converting to Islam in 1887. The Ottoman Sultan appointed him Sheikh al-Islam of the United Kingdom. During both World Wars, Muslims fought for and against Britain. In the Middle East, the exploits of Lawrence of Arabia became famous as he led a revolt by Arab Muslims against Ottoman Muslims during the Great War. Britain liberalised its immigration policies after World War II. The British Nationality Act of 1948 was significant, welcoming former colonials as countrymen. The journey of the SS Empire Windrush from Jamaica to Britain that year symbolised the beginning of what is now called multicultural Britain. Many families from the Indian subcontinent soon followed, increasing the Muslim population decade by decade. As the social landscape changed, British lawmakers crafted anti-racial discrimination legislation. A series of race relations acts in the 1960s and 1970s became the legal foundation for combating perceived discrimination. Muslims were not initially defined as a race and were not afforded protections under the Acts. Some British were worried about the growing influence from South Asia and the Middle East, but others were well placed to take advantage of the billions of petrodollars. London's city, its financial centre, was delighted to absorb new financial flows. British home banks courted domestic finance and eagerly accommodated Muslims through Sharia-compliant finance, which is Islamic-compatible lending and investing. Sharia-compliant stock funds may not invest in industries considered sinful, such as alcohol and pork. Multiculturalism. We're going to rock down to Electric Avenue and then we take it higher. This line from Eddie Grant's song Electric Avenue references the Brixton riots of 1981. Social tensions grew during the 1970s and 1980s. In April 1981, the London suburb of Brixton erupted in anger against the police. The riot pitted traditional police officers, armed with wooden truncheons, against alienated non-white residents. Journalists and elites generally discussed these riots in terms of racial alienation or class struggle. In the 1990s, Prime Minister Tony Blair championed Muslim-friendly immigration policies. He admired Islam, calling it a beautiful religion and describing Muhammad as an enormously civilizing force. He increased immigration levels and boasted about rubbing the right's nose in diversity. A pivotal shift in immigration policy followed the publication of Research, Development and Statistics Occasional Paper number 67. Released in 2001, the paper projected a bright, prosperous, multicultural future. The large influx of immigrants was expected to boost wages for all Britons and to culturally enrich the United Kingdom. Tory leaders criticised the Prime Minister for turning Britain into a foreign land. Middle Eastern migrants continued to arrive, straining the country's resources. By 2017, Britain was among many European countries that absorbed millions of Middle Eastern migrants, most of whom were young men. Some claimed to be 16 or 17 years old, but had receding hairlines and stubble beards. They had no official documents to verify their age. All is not well. It's our country, it's not a Christian country. You jealous we taking over? A Muslim shopkeeper to a leader of a Christian patrol marcher, May 2017. Islamophobia is an oxymoron. A sign held by an ex-Muslim, London, July 2017. Tensions between Muslim and non-Muslim Britons surfaced in the early 21st century. Muslim advocates demanded and received law enforcement protection against slights to their religion. Some claimed to suffer emotional distress caused by Islamophobia, a term that became deeply embedded in the British lexicon. But many white British, rich and poor, felt they needed protection. Working-class whites organised through groups, particularly the English Defence League, and through ad hoc patrols of their neighbourhoods. The well-heeled class, no longer feeling inoculated against Islamist violence, beefed up security in the tonier parts of town. The long, iconic English nanny, made world-famous through Mary Poppins, retooled. British counter-terrorism specialists taught aspiring nannies at Norland College how to protect wards from terrorists. Across Britain, ideas that would have been laughed off as bad jokes are now taken seriously. By 2015, there were at least 3 million Muslims living in Britain. Of these Muslims, 47% were born in Britain, 68% were ethnically Asian, and 33% were under 16 years old. 8% of all school-age children in Britain were Muslim, and many schools had student bodies with over 50%. But many Muslims, particularly women, did not work outside the home and were dependent on welfare, known as benefits in Britain. Nor were Muslims proportionally represented in professional occupations. About 6 in 10 Muslim women who have had traditional Islamic weddings in Britain are not legally married according to a survey. They have had a nikah marriage, but 61% failed to go through a separate civil ceremony recognised by the family courts. If their marriage breaks down and they cannot agree on a division of assets, they must fight through the civil courts, rather than start with a presumption that they will get an equal share. The growth of the Muslim population has brought significant voting power. Muslims are a decisive voting bloc, comprising 20% or more of the electorate in 26 constituencies and residing in all local authority areas in England and Wales. Islam will likely become the dominant religion in Britain within several generations. All this has raised concerns about pervasive whiteness. London's Transport Authority is far too dominated by white men, according to London Mayor Sadiq Khan, who promised to reshape it to better reflect London's diversity in the interest of Londoners. The Department for Education plans to recruit an additional 68,000 teachers from black and minority ethnic BME backgrounds to better reflect England's pupil demographics. Some organisations are simply too white for some tastes. British Red Cross Chief, there is a risk that in a very diverse community like Grenfell, an organisation with the words British and Cross in its title is confused with a Christian establishment organisation. This concludes this episode of Jihad and the World. Future podcasts will update relations between Muslims and non-Muslims in Britain and on the continent. If you liked it, please subscribe and give us a like. We are very excited about our latest book, Cauldron of Terror, Hamas, Israel and the World, which may now be available for purchase. Nothing in this podcast represents the official position of the United States government. Until our next podcast, thank you for listening, and goodbye from Kensington Security Consulting.